Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Eternal Glory, watching stars drift past the main viewing screen. The Zephyrian Galactic Empire had ruled these stars for over 2,000 years. Now everything was falling apart. Red warning lights flashed across the command center. Another rebel attack on the mining colonies. Another trade route cut off. Another system declaring independence. Kethvar's forearms moved quickly across the control panels, trying to coordinate responses to 6 different crisis situations at once. "Admiral," called out Sensor Officer Yixtol from her station. "We have a problem." Kethvar's scaled head turned toward the young officer. In his 150 years of military service, he had heard those words far too many times. "What kind of problem?" "Unknown contact, sir. Large ship, approximately 30,000 kilometers off our starboard side." The Admiral's yellow eyes narrowed. No ship should be in this sector without Imperial permission. The area was supposed to be empty space between contested territories. "Show me," he ordered. The main screen changed to display long-range sensor readings. A massive shape appeared against the starfield. Kethvar had seen many ships in his career, but this one looked different. It was long and sleek, with strange curves and angles that did not match any known design. "Size estimate?" he asked. "Approximately 1,000 meters in length, sir." "Mass readings are unusual." "Unusual how?" Yixtal's tentacles moved nervously over her controls. "The ship appears to be much heavier than it should be. Our sensors indicate materials we cannot identify." Kethvar studied the image carefully. The ship's hull was dark gray with white markings along its sides. He could make out what looked like symbols or letters, but they were not in any language he recognized. "Any response to our communications?" he asked. "Negative, sir. The ship appears to be drifting. No power signatures detected, no engine activity." This was strange. Ships did not simply appear in Imperial space without explanation, especially not ships of unknown design that looked more advanced than anything the Empire could build. Tactical assessment? Commander Rixver, the ship's weapons officer, checked his displays. "Unknown, Admiral. The ship's design does not match any known weapon systems. However, its size suggests it could be heavily armed." Kethvar made a decision. "Take us closer. Battle stations, but keep weapons powered down. I want to know what we are dealing with." The Eternal Glory began moving toward the mysterious ship. As they got closer, more details became visible on the main screen. The hull looked pristine, as if the ship was brand new. Strange antenna rays and sensor domes covered its surface. Most puzzling of all were the markings along its side. "Can you enhance those symbols?" Kethvar asked. The image zoomed in on the ship's hull. Large white letters became clearly visible. Terran Federation, and below that U East Defiance. "Terran," muttered Commander Rixver. "I have never heard of any Terran species." Neither had Kethvar. In 2,000 years of galactic expansion, the Empire had catalogued every known intelligent species. There were no Terrans in their databases. "Sir," Yixtal called out, her voice tense. "I am detecting strange energy readings from the ship." "What kind of energy readings?" "That is the problem, sir. Our sensors cannot identify the energy type. It does not match any known power source." The Admiral felt a chill run down his spine. Unknown ships with unknown technology appearing in Imperial space during a time of rebellion. This could not be a coincidence. "Sir," Yixtal's voice rose in alarm. "The energy readings are increasing rapidly." Before Kethvar could respond, the space around the unknown ship began to shimmer. The star field behind it appeared to bend and twist, as if gravity itself was being manipulated. "Impossible," whispered the ship's science officer. "Our readings suggest localized gravitational distortion on a massive scale. No known technology can produce such effects." The distortion grew stronger. Keffer watched in amazement as the fabric of space-time visibly warped around the alien vessel. Their own ship's instruments began going crazy, detecting energy levels that should not be possible. "Admiral," Yixval reported, her voice shaking. "The ship is generating power equivalent to a small star." "That cannot be correct." "Check your readings." "I have checked them 3 times, sir." "The energy output is increasing exponentially." Kethfer stared at the mysterious ship. If these readings were accurate, then whoever built this vessel had technology far beyond anything the Empire possessed. The implications were terrifying. "Sir," Commander Rixfer spoke quietly, "if this ship is hostile—" "I know," Kethfer replied. The Empire was already fighting a dozen rebel factions. They could not afford to make enemies of an unknown species with such advanced technology. "What are your orders, Admiral?" Kethfer considered his options. They could retreat and report to Imperial Command, but that would leave an unknown threat in Imperial space. They could attempt communication, but the ship had not responded to their signals. They could prepare for battle, but against technology they did not understand. Continue approach, but slowly. Keep trying to establish communication. I want science teams analyzing every piece of data we can gather about that ship. Yes, sir. As the eternal glory drew closer to the mysterious vessel, Kethfer wondered what they had discovered. The Empire was already in chaos. Rebel factions controlled entire star systems. Trade routes were being raided daily. Military resources were stretched thin across 1,000 fronts. And now this. An unknown ship with impossible technology, appearing in Imperial space at the worst possible time. The Admiral watched as his crew worked, frantically to understand what they were facing. Whatever these Terrans were, wherever they came from, their arrival would change everything. Keffer only hoped the Empire would survive long enough to learn whether they were dealing with potential allies or the most dangerous enemies they had ever encountered. The mysterious ship continued to drift silently through space, its strange energies bending reality around it like a cosmic storm that had only just begun. Admiral Kethfer stood in the shuttle bay of his flagship, adjusting his ceremonial armor. The mysterious ship had finally responded to their communications, but in a way that made no sense. The signal had come through in perfect galactic standard, the common language used throughout the Empire. This was impossible. No unknown species could learn their language so quickly. The Empire had detailed records of first contact with every intelligent race they had encountered. It always took months of careful translation work to establish basic communication. "Admiral," said Ambassador Jeltara, her diplomatic robes rustling as she approached. "Are you certain about this course of action?" Kethfer looked at the small diplomatic shuttle that would carry them to the alien vessel. 3 days had passed since the ship had appeared. In that time, Imperial scientists had detected energy readings that violated known physics. The ship seemed to generate power from nothing. "We must know what we are dealing with," he replied. "The Empire cannot afford to ignore a potential threat of this magnitude." The alien ship had agreed to receive a small diplomatic party. The message had been brief and polite. "We welcome peaceful contact with representatives of the Zephyrian Empire. Please approach our vessel at your convenience." Simple words that raised 1,000 questions. How did they know the Empire's name? How did they speak the language perfectly? Where did they come from? The shuttle journey took 30 minutes. As they approached the alien ship, Kethvar studied its design through the small viewing port. Up close, the vessel was even more impressive. Its hull appeared to be made from a single piece of unknown metal. No welding marks, no construction joints. As if the entire ship had been grown rather than built. Strange weapon emplacements dotted the hull. They looked nothing like Imperial energy cannons or missile pods. Some appeared to be simple metal tubes. Others looked like crystal formations that glowed with internal light. "Docking bay opening," reported their pilot. A section of the ship's hull simply dissolved away, revealing a brightly lit chamber. No mechanical doors, no visible opening mechanism. The metal just became transparent and then disappeared. Their shuttle landed on a deck made from the same strange material as the ship's hull. Through the shuttle's windows, they could see figures waiting for them. Tall, slender beings with pale skin and only 2 arms. They wore simple blue and black uniforms. "Atmosphere reads as safe for breathing," the pilot reported. "Gravity is slightly lighter than Imperial standard." Kethver stood up. "Remember, we know nothing about these beings. Stay alert, but appear non-threatening." The shuttle door opened. The aliens had not sent any security escort. Just 3 beings who looked more like scholars than soldiers. The one in front, wearing slightly different markings on her uniform, stepped forward. "Admiral Kethva, I presume?" she said in perfect galactic standard. "I am Captain Sarah Chun of the Terran Federation vessel used Defiance. Welcome aboard." Kethver studied the alien carefully. She was smaller than any Imperial officer, but something in her posture suggested confidence and authority. Her strange blue eyes showed no fear despite facing representatives of a galactic empire. "Captain Chun," he replied formally. "I am Admiral Kethver of the Imperial Navy. This is Ambassador Jel Tara. We come seeking peaceful dialogue." "Of course," Chun smiled, showing small white teeth. "Please, follow me to our conference room. I hope you do not mind that our ship is designed for human comfort." As they walked through the ship's corridors, Kethver noticed several disturbing things. The walls appeared to be made from the same seamless material as the hull. Panels of light provided illumination without any visible power sources. Most concerning of all, they passed numerous chambers filled with technology that made no sense. One room contained what looked like a massive, crystalline structure suspended in midair. Another held banks of computing equipment that seemed to operate on principles beyond Imperial understanding. Everything was clean, efficient, and impossibly advanced. "Your ship is quite impressive," Ambassador Jeltara commented carefully. "Thank you," Chun replied. "Though I should mention, the Defiance is just a mid-range exploration vessel. Nothing special by our standards." Kethver felt his blood chill. If this was their idea of a mid-range ship, what did their military vessels look like? They entered a conference room with a large table surrounded by comfortable chairs. Through a transparent wall, stars were visible outside. But something was wrong with the view. The star positions did not match what they should be seeing from this location. "Are we moving?" Kethver asked. "No," Chun replied casually. "That is just our observation deck. It shows a real-time view from our home system. We use quantum entanglement for instantaneous visual communication across any distance." The Admiral stared at her. Instantaneous communication across galactic distances was theoretically impossible. The Empire's fastest communication systems required months to send messages between distant star systems. They sat down at the table. Chun placed a small device in the center that projected a 3-dimensional star map. "We've been monitoring your communications for some time," she began. "We are aware of the internal conflicts affecting your empire. The Terran Federation wishes to establish peaceful diplomatic relations. Where exactly is Terra?" Ambassador Jeltara asked. Chun touched the device. The star map zoomed out, showing the entire galaxy. A point of light appeared far beyond the Empire's borders, in a region that Imperial maps marked as unexplored void. "Our home system is approximately 60,000 light-years from your capital world," Chun explained. "We have only recently begun exploring this region of the galaxy." Kethver did quick calculations in his head. Even with the Empire's fastest ships, Such a journey would take hundreds of years. Yet this human spoke as if it was a casual trip. "How long did it take you to travel here?" he asked. "About 3 weeks," Chun replied, though most of that time was spent conducting detailed scans of local space. The actual travel time was less than a day. This was impossible. No known technology could cross such distances so quickly. The Empire's best faster-than-light drives could barely manage a few light years per day. "Captain Chun," Ambassador Jeltara spoke carefully, "your technological capabilities appear quite advanced. What are your intentions regarding our territory?" The human looked surprised. "Intentions? We simply wish to learn about your culture and perhaps establish trade relations. The universe is vast and full of interesting species. We find it profitable to make friends rather than enemies." "Your ship appears to be heavily armed," Kethver observed. "Oh, that?" Chun waved dismissively. "Standard exploration protocols require defensive capabilities. Space can be dangerous. Pirates, hostile wildlife, stellar phenomena. But we prefer diplomatic solutions to conflicts whenever possible." She touched her device again. New images appeared showing other ships of the Terran Federation. Each one was larger and more impressive than the Defiance. One vessel appeared to be the size of a small moon. "These are some of our other exploration ships currently active in this region," Chun explained. "We like to travel in groups for safety." Kethver realized the Empire was facing something unprecedented. An unknown species with impossible technology that seemed to regard interstellar travel as routine. Beings who had been watching Imperial communications without being detected. The question was whether humanity represented salvation or doom for his crumbling empire. The emergency session of the Imperial War Council had been going for 6 hours. Admiral Kethver sat at the massive circular table, listening to his fellow officers debate the human situation. Half the room wanted to declare war immediately. The other half wanted to run. "These aliens are clearly scouts for an invasion force," declared Admiral Vexter, slamming his fist on the table. "We must strike first before they can summon reinforcements." "Strike with what?" Admiral Kethver asked quietly. "Their single ship generates more power than our entire battle fleet." "Impossible," snorted General Carvex. "No ship can generate that much energy. Their sensors must be malfunctioning." Admiral Kethver had expected this reaction. The Imperial military had never faced technology so advanced that it seemed like magic. They did not want to believe that their mighty empire could be helpless against one alien vessel. "The humans have agreed to demonstrate their capabilities," he announced. Captain Chun suggested it might help avoid unnecessary bloodshed. The room fell silent. Then Admiral Vexter laughed harshly. "A demonstration? How generous of them. What do they plan to do? Fire warning shots?" "She did not specify," Kethver admitted. "But I have authorized the test. We need to know what we are dealing with." The council members argued for another hour before agreeing to observe the human demonstration. A fleet of 12 Imperial warships took position at a safe distance from the human vessel. The target was an uninhabited moon orbiting a dead planet in a nearby system. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of the Eternal Glory, watching the tactical display. The human ship had moved to within weapons range of the barren moon. For comparison, the moon was roughly 3,000 kilometers in diameter, made mostly of solid rock and ice. "Open communication with the human vessel," he ordered. Captain Chen's image appeared on the main screen. She looked relaxed, sitting in what appeared to be the most comfortable command chair Kethver had ever seen. "Admiral," she said pleasantly, "we are ready to begin the demonstration. I should mention that we will be using our standard mining beam, which is our weakest shipboard energy weapon." "Weakest weapon?" Kethver felt his stomach drop. "We understand, Captain Chun. Proceed when ready." Chun nodded to someone off-screen. Beginning demonstration now. The human ship oriented itself toward the target moon. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a beam of brilliant white light erupted from the vessel's hull. The beam was thin, barely visible against the starfield. The beam struck the moon's surface. For several seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then the moon began to glow. "Sir," Sensor Officer Yixtel called out, her voice shaking. "The moon's surface temperature is rising rapidly. 10,000 degrees and climbing." The glow spread across the moon's surface like fire. But this was not normal fire. The rocky surface was not burning or melting. It was simply disappearing, converted into pure energy that blazed like a miniature star. 20,000 degrees, Yixtel reported. 50,000. 100,000. The Imperial officers watched in horrified fascination as the moon continued to dissolve under the human beam. Massive chunks of rock and ice simply ceased to exist, their matter converted directly into light and heat. 2,000,000 degrees, Yixtel whispered. "Sir, the energy release is equivalent to a stellar fusion reaction." The moon was half gone now, its remaining mass glowing white-hot as the conversion process continued. Space around the dying celestial body shimmered with released energy. "Sir," the science officer called out urgently, "our instruments are detecting gravitational waves. The matter conversion is actually altering local space-time." Admiral Kethver could only stare. The Empire's most powerful weapons could crack a moon's surface or perhaps split it in half. The humans were making one disappear completely, turning solid matter into pure energy with casual efficiency. 10 minutes until complete conversion. Yixtel reported the communication channel with the human ship was still open. Captain Chun appeared to be reading reports on a small device, completely unconcerned by the stellar-level destruction her ship was producing. "Captain Chun," Kethver managed to say, "this is quite impressive." She looked up from her device. "Oh, the mining beam?" "Yes, it is quite useful for asteroid processing. Much more efficient than conventional explosives." Kethver realized she was serious. The humans used weapons that could destroy moons for routine mining operations. "Captain," Admiral Vexter's voice came over the communication system. "What would happen if you used an actual military weapon?" Chum paused, as if considering how to explain something to a child. "Well, our military weapons operate on rather different principles. Much more focused energy delivery. We could probably remove that entire star system from existence in about 30 seconds. The bridge fell completely silent. Even Admiral Vexter had nothing to say. The moon finished dissolving 10 minutes later. Where a 3,000-kilometer celestial body had existed, there was now only empty space and slowly fading energy signatures. "Demonstration complete," Chun announced cheerfully. "I hope this helps clarify our technological capabilities." Before Admiral Kethver could respond, Sensor Officer Yixtel called out in alarm. "Sir, I am detecting multiple large objects approaching from deep space." The tactical display updated, showing new contacts entering the star system. 12 vessels, each one larger than the human ship they had been watching. The smallest was over 2 kilometers long. "Captain Chun," Kethver asked carefully, "are those your ships?" "Oh yes," he replied. "The rest of our exploration fleet. They have been conducting surveys in nearby systems. I thought you might like to meet the other captains." Admiral Kethver stared at the tactical display. 13 human vessels, each one capable of destroying planets, now occupied Imperial space. And according to Captain Chun, these were just exploration ships. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we are receiving a priority message from Imperial Command." "Put it through." The image of Grand Admiral Tolver appeared on a secondary screen. His usually composed expression showed barely controlled panic. "Admiral Kethver," he said urgently, We have detected over 50 unknown vessels entering Imperial space across multiple sectors. Energy signatures match the ship you are observing. What is the situation? 50 ships. Kethfer felt the last of his military confidence collapse. The humans had not sent one scout vessel. They had sent an entire fleet. Sir, he replied slowly, I believe we are dealing with a species that regards our entire military as primitives playing with toys. Captain Chun's voice cut across the communication channel. Grand Admiral Tolver, I presume? This is Captain Chun of the Terran Federation. We come in peace and hope to establish friendly relations with your empire. Perhaps we could arrange a formal meeting? The Grand Admiral stared at her image for a long moment. You speak our language very well, Captain. Thank you. Your linguistic structure is quite elegant. We learned it from your public transmissions. In 3 days? Actually, about 6 hours. Languages are not particularly difficult once you understand the underlying mathematical patterns. Grand Admiral Tolver closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his expression was that of a being who had just realized his entire worldview was wrong. Captain Chun, he said formally, the Zephyrian Empire would be honored to discuss peaceful relations with the Terran Federation. The Imperial throne room had never hosted beings from beyond the galaxy. Emperor Zalvith sat on his crystal throne, trying to appear dignified while facing the most powerful military force in known existence. Captain Sarah Chun stood before him, looking completely at ease, despite being surrounded by thousands of years of imperial tradition and ceremony. Your Majesty, she said with a respectful bow, the Terran Federation thanks you for agreeing to these discussions. The Emperor studied the small human carefully. She carried no visible weapons, wore no armor, and seemed completely unconcerned by her surroundings. Yet outside his palace, 50 human warships waited in orbit, each one capable of reducing his capital world to cosmic dust. Captain Chun, he replied formally, we are curious about your Federation's intentions. Your arrival has been quite dramatic. We apologize for any concern we may have caused, Chun said with apparent sincerity. We simply wanted to ensure our diplomatic mission was taken seriously. Peaceful contact can be difficult to establish when civilizations have such different technological levels. Admiral Kethfer, standing beside the throne, spoke up. Captain, you mentioned studying our culture. What exactly does that involve? Chun smiled. We find alien approaches to social organization fascinating. Every species develops unique solutions to common problems. Your empire, for example, has maintained stability across thousands of worlds for centuries. That is quite remarkable. The Emperor felt a bitter laugh rise in his throat. Stability? Captain, our empire is collapsing. Rebel factions control entire sectors. Our military is spread too thin to maintain order. Yes, we noticed, Chun said calmly. Which is why we would like to propose a trade arrangement. Grand Admiral Tolver stepped forward. What kind of trade? We help you stabilize your empire using human expertise in conflict resolution. In exchange, we establish formal diplomatic relations and are allowed to study your culture and history. The throne room fell silent. The imperial leadership exchanged glances. It sounded almost too good to be true. What exactly do you mean by conflict resolution? The Emperor asked. Chun activated a small device that projected a three-dimensional map of imperial space. Red zones marked areas under rebel control. We have been monitoring your communications and analyzing the various conflicts. Most of these rebellions stem from economic problems and administrative inefficiency rather than fundamental ideological differences. She touched the device. The map zoomed in on a sector where 3 different rebel factions were fighting imperial forces. Take the Outer Rim conflicts, for example. The rebels are not fighting for independence because they hate the Empire. They are fighting because imperial tax collection has become predatory and local governors have been corrupt. Emperor Zalvith leaned forward. You learned this from monitoring our communications? Your people are quite vocal about their grievances on public channels. Chun replied diplomatically. The solutions are often relatively simple, but require approaches that your current military doctrine does not cover. Admiral Kethver frowned. What kind of approaches? Would you like a demonstration? Chun asked. Before anyone could respond, she activated her communication device. This is Captain Chun to all Terran vessels. Please begin Operation Helpful Neighbor. The Emperor felt panic rise in his chest. Captain, what are you doing? Resolving 3 of your rebel conflicts, she replied cheerfully. Do not worry, Your Majesty. No violence will be necessary. On the tactical displays around the throne room, Imperial officers watched in amazement as human ships moved toward active combat zones. The vessels did not approach like military forces. Instead, they positioned themselves between rebel and Imperial fleets. All Imperial and Rebel forces in the Kelvin system came a broadcast in perfect galactic standard. This is Captain Rodriguez of the Terran Federation vessel Use Harmony. We are here to facilitate peaceful resolution of local conflicts. Please stand down your weapons and prepare to receive diplomatic representatives. Admiral Kethver stared at the displays. Captain Chun, the rebels will not simply surrender because you asked them to. Watch, she said simply. On the screen, the rebel fleet had indeed stopped firing. Their ships were holding position, apparently as confused as the Imperial forces. Rebel Commander Veltox, the human captain continued. We have reviewed your stated grievances regarding Imperial taxation policy and local administrative corruption. We believe we can help resolve these issues through negotiation. The rebel commander's voice came over the channel. Who are you people? What authority do you have to interfere in Imperial affairs? We have no authority whatsoever, Captain Rodriguez replied cheerfully. We are simply here to help. We have some experience with resolving conflicts between different groups. Would you be willing to discuss your concerns in a neutral setting? Emperor Zalvith watched in disbelief as the rebel commander actually agreed to talks. Within hours, representatives from both sides were aboard human ships, engaged in discussions mediated by beings who had no stake in the conflict. Similar scenes played out in 2 other star systems. Human ships arrived, politely asked everyone to stop shooting, and somehow convinced both sides to talk instead of fight. How? Grand Admiral Tolver asked. How are they doing this? Chun checked her device. Humans have developed extensive expertise in conflict resolution over our history. Most disputes can be resolved when all parties believe they are being heard fairly and have a chance to benefit from negotiation. But these rebels have been fighting for years. Admiral Kethver protested. Yes, because neither side has offered them anything better than continued warfare, Chun replied. Watch what happens when they have other options. Over the next several hours, reports came in from all 3 conflict zones. The rebels were not surrendering, exactly. Instead, they were agreeing to temporary ceasefires while human mediators helped work out solutions to their grievances. In the Kelvin system, the rebels agreed to rejoin the Empire in exchange for fair taxation and removal of corrupt local officials. The Terran mediators had somehow convinced both sides that cooperation was more profitable than war. Captain Chun, the Emperor said slowly, your people seem to have a remarkable talent for diplomacy. We find that most conflicts can be resolved when all parties involved feel their concerns are being addressed, she replied. Violence is usually a last resort when people feel they have no other options. Admiral Kethver studied the tactical displays. 3 major rebel conflicts had been resolved in a single day using methods that the Imperial military had never considered. "What about the other rebel factions?" he asked. Chun smiled. "We have teams en route to 17 other conflict zones. I estimate we can resolve most of your internal conflicts within 2 weeks." 2 weeks? Grand Admiral Tolver stared at her. "Some of these rebellions have been going on for decades." "Yes, but nobody has tried simply asking the rebels what they actually want and then helping them get it through legal means," Chun pointed out. "Most of your rebels just want better living conditions and honest government. These are not unreasonable demands." The Emperor leaned back in his throne, trying to process what he was witnessing. A species with technology that could destroy stars was offering to solve his empire's problems, using conversation and compromise. "Captain Chun," he said finally, "if your people can truly stabilize our empire through peaceful means, the Zephyrian government would be extremely grateful." "Excellent," she replied. "We will begin immediate deployment of conflict resolution teams throughout Imperial space. In exchange, we would like to establish a permanent diplomatic mission and cultural exchange program." "Agreed," the Emperor said, without hesitation. As human ships spread throughout the Empire, beginning the largest peacekeeping operation in galactic history, Emperor Zalvith realized he was witnessing something unprecedented. A species so advanced they could remake physics had chosen to solve problems through patience and understanding rather than force. Perhaps, he thought, there was more than one way to be powerful. 6 months after first contact, Admiral Kethver stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching human and Imperial ships patrol together through what had once been rebel space. The transformation of the Empire still seemed like a dream. The rebellion that had threatened to tear apart 2,000 years of civilization was over, not crushed through military might, but resolved through what the humans called applied diplomacy. Every major rebel faction had agreed to rejoin the Empire after human mediators helped negotiate solutions to their grievances. "Admiral," called Captain Chen from behind him. She had been promoted to Special Cultural Exchange Liaison, a position that somehow gave her more real authority than most Imperial generals. "The morning briefing is ready." Kethver turned to face the small human who had become the most influential person in the Empire. "Good morning, Captain. How many crises do we have today?" "Only 3, she replied cheerfully. "A trade dispute between 2 mining colonies, a territorial disagreement about shipping routes, and a request from the former Outer Rim rebels to help them design new agricultural systems." Kethver smiled. 6 months ago, his daily briefings had involved dozens of active military conflicts. Now, his biggest problems were administrative disputes that could be solved through conversation. "The agricultural request is interesting," Chung continued as they walked toward the conference room. "The Outer Rim worlds want to become food exporters rather than just mineral extraction sites. They have some fascinating ideas about crop rotation." "You find everything fascinating," Kethver observed. "Everything is fascinating," she replied seriously. "Every species, every culture, every solution to the problems of existence. Humans learn by studying how others approach challenges." They entered the conference room where representatives from across the Empire waited. Former rebels sat next to Imperial governors, working together on projects that would have been impossible months earlier. "Good morning, everyone," Chun said, taking her seat. "Let us review the progress reports." The former rebel commander Val Tok spoke first. "The Galvin system has exceeded production quotas for 3 months running. Our new mining cooperative model is working better than we expected." Governor Hickseville nodded approvingly. "Tax revenues from the Outer Rim have increased by 40%, and civil unrest is at the lowest levels in 50 years. Kethver listened to the reports with amazement. The humans had not imposed their solutions on Imperial problems. Instead, They had helped the Empire's people find their own answers through guided discussion and compromise. "Captain Chun," asked Commander Yalesh, one of the former rebel leaders, "we have a question about the new conflict resolution protocols you taught us. What do we do if people refuse to negotiate?" "Has that happened yet?" Chun asked. "No, but theoretically." Chun smiled. "In our experience, people usually refuse to negotiate when they believe the process is unfair or that their concerns will not be heard. Make sure everyone understands they have an equal voice in finding solutions. And if they still refuse, then you find out why they feel negotiation will not work and address those concerns first." Admiral Kethver had watched this process dozens of times. The humans approached every problem as if the solution was simply a matter of patience and creativity. Somehow, it worked. "Admiral," Chun said after the meeting ended, "I have received some interesting news from Earth." They walked to her office, which had become the de facto command center for Imperial stabilization operations. The walls were covered with charts showing trade routes, resource allocation, and cultural exchange programs. "What kind of news?" he asked. Chun activated her communication device. A holographic image appeared showing a middle-aged human in a simple uniform. "Admiral Kethver," the image said. "I am Director Williams of the Terran Federation Department of Interspecies Relations. I wanted to personally thank you for your cooperation with our cultural study mission." Kethver stared at the image. "Cultural study mission?" "Yes," Director Williams continued. "Captain Chun's work with your empire has provided valuable data about large-scale governmental systems. Her reports on imperial administrative methods have been quite enlightening." "Director Williams," Kethver said carefully, "how many such missions does your Federation conduct?" "Currently, we have active cultural exchange programs with 47 different species across 12 galaxies. Captain Chun's assignment to study your empire was considered a minor diplomatic mission." "Minor diplomatic mission." The stabilization of the greatest galactic empire in known space was a minor mission to these people. "Director," Captain Chun spoke up, "Admiral Kethver has been curious about the scope of Federation operations." Director Williams smiled. "Of course. Admiral, the Terran Federation currently consists of approximately 2 million inhabited systems across multiple galaxies. We have been exploring the universe for about 300 years now." Kethver felt dizzy. 2 million systems. The Empire considered itself vast with its 10,000 worlds. "The galaxy you inhabit," Williams continued, "is one of several we are currently studying. We find the diversity of life and culture to be endlessly interesting. How many of our people know about this?" Kethver asked. "Just your leadership," Chun replied. "We prefer to let civilizations adjust gradually to contact with truly large-scale galactic powers. Sudden awareness can be destabilizing." The Admiral sat down heavily. "Captain Chun, when you helped us resolve our conflicts, you were studying us." "Yes, but that does not make our assistance any less genuine," she said seriously. "Humans believe in helping others when we can. The fact that we learn from the process is simply a bonus." Director Williams nodded. "The Federation has found that peaceful cooperation is much more productive than conquest or domination. Happy civilizations are willing partners in cultural and scientific exchange." "What happens now?" Kethver asked. "Now," Chen replied, "the Empire continues developing its new governmental systems. We maintain our diplomatic mission and cultural exchange programs. Your people learn about human technology and methods. Our people learn about imperial history and administration. And in the future? That depends on your people," Director Williams said. "Some species prefer limited contact. Others eventually join the Federation as full members. A few have become close partners in our exploration missions. Cathver looked out the window at the ships patrolling peacefully through Imperial space. Human vessels designed for exploration and diplomacy rather than conquest. A species so advanced they could rewrite the laws of physics, choosing to spread peace and knowledge instead of fear. "Captain Chun," he said finally, "I'm curious about something. Your people have technology that could conquer any civilization in this galaxy. Why do you choose diplomacy instead?" She considered the question seriously. "Admiral, humans learned long ago that forcing people to do things creates resentment and instability. Willing cooperation is much more valuable than submission through fear. But surely some species refuse to cooperate." "Some do," she admitted. "But we have found that most conflicts arise from misunderstanding or unmet needs rather than fundamental incompatibility. Given time and patience, most problems can be resolved." "And if they cannot?" Chen's expression remained pleasant, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "Then we find other solutions. But we prefer not to discuss those methods unless absolutely necessary." Admiral Cathver nodded, understanding. The humans preferred peace, but they were still the most powerful force in the universe. That combination of capability and restraint was perhaps their greatest strength, thought as he looked out at the stars. Cathver reflected on the irony of their situation. The Empire had feared invasion by aliens with superior technology. Instead, they had been rescued by beings who saw conquest as boring and preferred to make friends. The galaxy was larger and stranger than anyone had imagined. But perhaps with humans as guides, it was also safer than they had ever dared to hope.